A4LD. I thought I had done a teardown. Apparently the last A4LD I had done was before I was doing disassembly videos. So we got one in here. We're going to go ahead and do it. There will not be a rebuild on this because I already got a rebuild video. Anybody that's been watching my channel for a while knows I have a deal. If it doesn't get rebuilt, you do not leave it on the unit. Sometimes I'll be nice enough and I'll take it off like I did on this one. I took this off. I put this with the parts for the guy that took it out, and he was stupid enough to pick it back up and put it back on the unit. Now he gets to go dumpster diving for it, and he has to hope that it doesn't get picked up by the trash man in between time. 7/16 on the speedometer. I need a small parts basket. Alright, speedometer will come out now. Check your gear. Make sure it's not apple cord. And also you can look up inside of here and make sure we're not leaking oil. If it's leaking oil, you need to replace that. 10mm on the modulator. You can visually check this thing. There's a pin. Do not lose that pin. You can visually check here and make sure there's no fluid running out. If it is, it's definitely bad. Otherwise, you need to put a vacuum gauge on this, and you need to make sure it's holding a vacuum. As long as it holds a vacuum, you're good to go. Snap rings in here for your servos. There are places that you put snap ring pliers on them. I just popped them out. There's a couple little notches in here. You just get behind it and pop the snap rings out. You need to look at your servo covers. There will be numbers on there, or letters on there, I'm sorry. And like this one's an FB. Let me get it out of there. And I will show it to you. Okay, there's an FB on this one. I would never use an FB. The smallest I would use is a BB here. The smallest I would use here is an AB. So we're going to need the servo and the cover. I'm going to get a BB for here. The lighter, heavier spring goes in the back, the lighter spring goes in the front. There's a BB here, so if this is soft, this is nice and soft, I can use this. I'll use this back here, so I just need to order an AB for up here. 17mm on the tail housing. And down here on the bottom is supposed to be a tag, and that tells you what this unit fits. The tag is gone. Not surprising. This thing's probably been built God knows how many times. Here's our pivot pin, our park actuator, and our return spring. Here's our governor. We do not need to pull this plate off. Just pull your governor off, 10mm. And there's a weight, a spring, and another weight in here. Make sure, and you're going to want to clean this up and look at the bore and make sure it's not severely worn out. Three-quarters on, nope, 17, 18, I grabbed the wrong wrench a minute ago. I guess I did. It is 3/4. I must have grabbed the 13/16. Come on, let go. There is an O-ring underneath here that will need to be replaced. It's going to want to be difficult because we're on camera. All the way out. Three-quarters on the band adjustments. Usually you just start taking the nut off and they'll pull the whole thing out. They get so rusted on there, you'll have to get those off and buff the rust off of it. $17 millimeters on the bell housing bolts. Depending on what year you have is what will be here. Like this is a later one, so it has O-rings on it. Early ones had washers on them. And depending on what year you have as to what bolts will be here. This should have been 40 Torx. These are still 5 millimeters. Or 6 millimeters, I'm sorry. Okay, on these 6 millimeters, usually they come out so damn tight, I get an impact driver to help break them loose. Somebody really put them on there. Oh, man. Let's see if it'll maybe break it loose. Okay, luckily. Holy crap, somebody really put them on there. They do not need to be that tight. Crap. Finally. Okay, now we're gonna look at our bushings, and you take your input shaft even, put in here, make sure not too much play on them bushings. When you got your input shaft, make sure it's not all scored up. Look in here, make sure you're not all scored up. You might even want to take your gears, put them back in, and check your clearance, face clearance, and your gear clearance as far as on the, it's kind of harder to do this one because you got to have it lined up. Now you can get the tool for lining up the pump on from Transgo, and you can, it kind of helps aid in that. It'll help get this gear lined up. Now the inner gear has a bevel to it. The bevel faces forward. This bevel right there. Make sure where the gear goes onto the converter is not all eat up here and all scored up. You can go ahead and mark them if you want to, but the bevel goes forward. The inner gear, if it has a mark on it, should face up, but it really doesn't matter on the inner gear. I mean the outer gear. Make sure your plate's not all chewed up here where the gears go. As long as your bell housing isn't too warped, you can put a flat edge across here, and you can flat file this thing, and you should be okay. Whether the bands are burnt or not, always replace them. They are horrible about breaking. So just it doesn't matter, just replace them. Our band struts, here's our washer for our Planet. It goes in between. Check your sprag. If this is coming loose at all, like this one's cracked, this is getting replaced. But if it wasn't cracked, you put your Planet back in here, that's no good. It should lock one way and turn the other. So our sprag is totally gone. Probably, I don't know, that doesn't feel too bad. You can probably polish that up. A lot of times when that sprag goes bad, it'll chew this up. Make sure your pinions, these are horrible about the brass washers coming loose, coming out of there. So make sure that they are there and in good shape. Looks like this has been replaced at some point because it's got different washers in it. Alright, odds are this is bad in here. Since this sprag is bad, we'll go ahead and pop it out. I'll check our race inside of here. Actually does not feel that bad. We'll put a new sprag in here and we'll see if it holds. If it holds, then we should be okay. Okay, the bushings in here tend to get worn, and when it drops down far enough, it'll go in here and it'll destroy all that stuff. It's started. You can see how it's popped the snap ring off. It's grabbed this, it's spun it around. It's ripped all the keepers out of here and the springs, so the piston's ruined. I'm just going to buy a whole drum with all the parts. So it'll come with steels, pressure plate, snap ring, all the springs, the cage, and the snap ring here. And our washer is going to be destroyed. It sits and rides on this drum right here, so it needs to be replaced. As long as the sun gear is okay, which it appears to be, we can reuse it again, but we do need a new star washer. Pull our pivot pin out and our lever. On the levers, there will be letters also. Like that's an A, E. You probably want to go with an A here, at least a B, but not a C or an E. Pop our snap ring out. This is beveled. The bevel goes towards you, opening at the 6 o'clock. $13mm on the pin. Be mindful of which way your linkage is pointing. Some point up, some point down. Oh, we got a ton of metal. Just a ton of metal. Alright, early A4LDs only had one solenoid, and it would be the lockup solenoid up here in the front. This is a 3/4 solenoid back here in the back. Different filters, or valve body bolts loose. Different filters for different applications. So make sure you get the right filter for what you're doing. $10mm on the filter and the valve body bolts. There is a bracket right here. Sometimes it will stay on there. So make sure that it is there. On your reverse servo down here, there's 4 bolts that hold it on. The early ones had a spring on it. So don't just take these bolts out. You want to make sure that there's no tension on that before you do. You look at your pin and make sure it's not all screwed up. And get you an old one, keep an old pin, and you put it in here and check your bore. It's not very common that they wear out, but these things are getting pretty old. Set our valve body off to the side. There's 30 Torques that hold this in. Don't worry about the valve body later. This bracket, there's a 5mm Allen down in here. This does not matter if it's in here or not, but some of these had this spring right here. If it gets lost, don't worry about it. Alright, there's a nut on the inside. Our center support will come out now. May have to wiggle it around a little bit. Go ahead and pull this bolt or this nut out of here and put it on your bolt, because this thing loves to fly away and it loves to come out of this little cage that it's in. Alright, check your washer. Check for ring grooves in here where the drum rides. Make sure it's not all eat up on here. Direct drum. There's a washer. There's a forward drum. Make sure the ring lands are okay. Make sure the splines are not stripped out in here. Make sure the clutches have not eat up the splines right here. The bearing on the back, depending on what you have, what year you have. There's different setups for all this, so be mindful of how it comes apart if you have an earlier model on this, because it's different. At this one, the band still looks good, doesn't matter, will get replaced. Here again, we got a D. We'll get at least a B, probably an A. Alright, depending on what size engine you have is to how many pinions will be in your Planet, and whether this bearing will come out. This will probably fall out of here. So be careful when you're going back together. If you got a small one like this, this may fall out. Make sure it's back in there. Our sun shell, make sure it's not stripped out, that the lugs are not all messed up, the sun gear's not all pitted. Another washer. We'll take the drums apart in a minute. Right, down inside of here, there's a snap ring that holds it all together. Snap ring, our Planet will come out. And here again, depending on what you got, as to what this will look like. Make sure that your washers are in there again, not all pitted, not wobbling around. we'll need a pair of snap ring pliers. And hopefully some jackass hasn't put this in upside down. Okay, good deal. Now our ring gear will come out, and depending on what gear you have as to how this is set up back there, before you pull your band drum out, make sure that the sprag is holding one way and locking the other. We will be replacing the sprag whether it looks good or not. It's cheap. They go bad, horribly bad all the time, so I don't even screw around with them. Make sure your band's not burnt and it's not broke. These love to break right here. This one's pretty burnt. So we need all three bands. Our output shaft will come out now. The governor housing will come off now. There's a washer back here. There's three rings back here. These love to eat up the case. So if this is eat up back here, your case bushing is definitely bad. So make sure you replace that bushing in the back of your case. Check your case for ring grooves. Everything looks good. Go ahead and stick our hand in here on this race. This race is screwed up. You feel it's all wobbly. It's got all kinds of grooves in it, so this sprag is not going to hold much longer. Surprising that it was holding already, or holding still. So they make a tool that you can put in here, and it'll drill, show you exactly how to drill. If you don't have it, you don't have to have it, but it sure helps. You're going to drill a couple holes in the back of the case here at a 40, kind of almost a 45-degree angle. I guess it's pretty close to 45. You're going to come in just where you're almost rubbing on here. Actually, you're going this way. We're going to be coming in here at this angle, and you're going to almost be rubbing right here, drilling into there and drilling into here, and you're going to drill down to that race, and you're going to get a punch, and you can punch that race out, and then you can Loctite it and drive it back, drive a new race back down. So I'm going to need a new race for back here. The governor housing still looks okay. Forward clutches are burnt bad enough that we're going to need steels here. Yep. Pressure plate's okay. We are going to need steels. Probably directs also. Yeah, these are bad enough. You can see shiny spots and dull spots. It's not worth it. I just buy a kit with steels, since we need all of them anyway. Let me go ahead and get the snap ring out here. I would replace the bushing here just like on here. Okay, snap ring. Retainer springs. There's different configurations sometimes on these springs, so pay attention to that. Our piston, our drum. What was I gonna say? I was just thinking about something over there that I needed to say. Maybe it'll come to me when I take this apart. Okay, snap ring, retainer, springs. A lot of times these are so old that the rubber's so loose that you can just pull the piston out. Other times, just shoot some air in there and it'll come out. And what I was thinking of over there was just go ahead and buy a bushing kit for it. As many bushings as you're going to have to replace. Kind of ends up being cheaper to just buy the whole kit. It's got to be a snot. There we go. Okay, so this one here is pretty damaged. We're going to need a master kit with steels, probably a modulator, overdrive, complete overdrive drum loaded, AB servo for the front, and then cover, all 3 bands, filter, sprag race in the back, overdrive sprag, torque converter, I guess that's probably it. Like I said, there won't be a rebuild on this one because I've already got one. I think it's close enough up. If it's not close enough up, I'll do the rebuild on it, but probably not. So, catch you on the next one.